Am I wrong for telling my sister she should have shaved before my engagement party? I, female 27, got engaged recently. We had the engagement party at a restaurant. It was paid by my future mother-in-law. My sister, 22 female, came with my parents. She is the type that lives by the body positivity concept, which is more than okay, but she tends to put me in situations where I find myself having to deal with people's reactions. I'll explain what I mean in a minute. She came to the party wearing a dress above the knee. My future mother-in-law and the other woman were staring at her legs constantly. Mother-in-law then pulled me aside and pointed out my sister's leg hair. I was completely baffled and quite shocked. She said it made her and other women feel uneasy and weirded out. I said I was sorry for how they felt and tried to stay calm, but I was mad from the inside. The woman continued to stare and my sister acted like everything was fine. I honestly felt like she caused disruption to the party. I brought it up with her later and told her about what the guests felt about her unshaved legs. She kept chewing her gum while completely acting like it was nothing. She said my future in-law women need to chill. I told her this was unacceptable and that she should have shaved before coming since it was my event and I had to deal with the looks and disruption from the women. My parents told me to get off her back and leave her alone. Then they left. My mom is now telling me to apologize for upsetting my sister after she came to share my happy moments. I told this to my fiance and he just kept laughing and making comments about us being ridiculous. Am I wrong here? I feel like she disrespected me and my guests. I honestly think this is not a big deal. If guys show their legs and they have hair, there's nothing wrong with it, but when a girl does it, it's considered gross. Explain that to me. Why? Why is that considered gross? Am I wrong for reporting my date for stalking his ex? I went on a date with a guy last week, just a first date out to drinks. And we were joking about being true crime fans and kind of paranoid people in funny little ways. And how one time I climbed on the table in an Airbnb to find what I thought was a hidden camera with a blinking red light, but ended up just being a ventilation fan. Then he told me a story about how he felt like his last girlfriend and now ex and his brother were sleeping together, even though both of them denied it. And he put a GPS tag on her car and confirmed it, but didn't tell them how he found out. I was super freaked out hearing that. My story was fairly silly, but his was downright scary. I took out my phone and quietly started recording audio, but just acted interested and asked, "So, how did you sneak the tracker off her car after you confronted them?" And then he laughed and said he didn't. He could still see it in an app. I asked if I could see it and he showed me, like, "She's at work right now." I was like, damn, what a workaholic, 7 p.m, and changed the subject. We ended up talking about other stuff for a while and I was looking for a way out of the conversation. I texted my mom saying I was on a date with someone who was scaring me and I needed an excuse to leave that wouldn't make him mad. She called me right away and said that my dad was in the hospital and he was in critical condition and that she was coming to get me right away. This was BS. My mom took me straight to the police station with my audio recording to file a stalking report. The police took it really seriously and they sent a police officer to the girl's workplace, which I knew about because the guy had shown me her location and said she was at work to warn her and to inspect her car for a tracker. Well, it got back to him ASAP because the girl told my date's brother, who she was still dating, that he was stalking her and the police found a GPS tag on her car. And the brother confronted him. He then started blowing up my phone. Luckily, he only had my dating app profile, calling me a narc, saying that he only did it because this girl was going to marry him and then went behind her back to screw his brother and he had to know, etc. I reported his profile to the app and also brought the messages back to the police station to see if I could file a protective order. It turned out I couldn't without revealing my full legal name, which I decided not to do since I have a very unique name and he only knew me by a westernized nickname based on my middle name. I also found out that he was arrested later that same night. But I'm feeling a little guilty. Like, of course it was messed up to still be stalking someone, but I guess I can also kind of see how he would want it to if his brother was sleeping with his long-term girlfriend. Am I wrong for having reported that?
How I found out my best friend set me up to get assaulted and robbed. Disclaimer, this is not my story time, I'm sending me on Instagram. Growing up, I got bullied a lot and I never had a best friend. After graduating from college, I landed a really good job. I actually started working as a forest ranger and this was my dream job. I love being outside in nature. Like I said, I don't have a lot of friends. I even had to move to a smaller town to be at this job. When I got to this small town, immediately one girl started trying to befriend me. Let's call her Katie. Katie was extremely nice to me, like almost too nice at the beginning. She was always inviting me to go out and even introduced me to all her friends. I ended up really liking her friend group, which was so nice. A month into living there, weird things started happening. One day I woke up to a knife in my tire. Then a few days later, 2 of my packages were stolen. I decided to install a Ring camera and I told nobody. For the next 2 weeks, nothing happened. Then one night, my Ring camera notifies me that someone is outside my door. The person was wearing a black hoodie, so I couldn't see their face, but I could tell that they were a woman. Part 2 is up. How I found out my best friend set me up to get assaulted and robbed. Disclaimer is not my story time, it's that I'm on Instagram. That's when I see a black figure outside my door. Couldn't see exactly who they were, but I could tell it was a woman. I obviously didn't confront them because I didn't know if they had weapons. Instead, I turned on my porch light and they ran away. The next morning, I realized that they were scoping, trying to figure out how they could get in my house. I went to the police and they told me that it was probably just teenagers playing a joke on me. I decided to believe them because I couldn't imagine somebody wanting to rob me. But more weird things started happening. I have my packages stolen at least once a week, so I decided to get a P.O. box instead. Mind you, while all of this is happening, I'm still hanging out with Katie and her friends. She was always calling me her bestie, and we would do everything together. She would even come over to my house and sleep over. I truly thought that she was a good person. One night I go out with Katie and her friends. Katie decided to get belligerently drunk. This is when she started saying things like, "We know you have money. You come from money, don't you?" I decided to go to the bathroom, and when I came back, they were all gone. Part 3 is up. How I found out my best friend set me up to get assaulted and robbed. Disclaimer is not my story time, it's on Instagram. When I come back from the bathroom, I realized they ditched me. By the way, they had given me a ride to the bar. Because there's no Uber at that time in my small town, I ended up having to hitch a ride with some random man. Next day, Katie comes over super apologetic. She even asked me if she could sleep over, so I said yes. The entire time she was at my house, she kept trying to smoke cigarettes outside, and she kept leaving the door unlocked. I finally go to bed, I check that the door is locked, and it was. Then at 2 a.m., I wake up to my Ring alarm notifying me that there's people outside. When I look, there are 4 men standing at my door, and they're yelling at me to open the door. They even said, "Be ready because we're horny." I was petrified. I instantly called the police and told them that they needed to leave, which they did. Then I go looking for Katie and she's nowhere to be found. When the cops came, they ended up telling me that Katie had done this to other women, and that the group of men were her cousins. That's when I realized that she was the one stealing all my stuff. They were arrested, but they couldn't keep him there. How am I going to be in the same town as her? I don't think I should have to move. What should I do?
Am I the asshole for firing an employee returning from maternity leave? I run a team of 6 people and our company offers a large amount of maternity leave. 10 months exactly. One of my employees got pregnant recently and I'll just call her Jess. Our team does project-based work and in the period between her leaving, we finished up the project we were working on when she left. Started a new project without her, but we definitely had to adapt. The situation now is me and 2 others split half the work that Jess used to do. We eventually hired someone new to come into the team to handle the other part of Jess's workload and then some. He was straight out of university and we pay him a fraction of what Jess costs currently. Am I the asshole for firing an employee returning from maternity leave? Now Jess is back, but the firm is saying we only have budget for 7 people now. We're in a 5-month project that should take 10 months and my decision came down to Jess and the man we hired. We hired a replacement because we thought the workload would be far greater than our capacity. I chose the replacement because he's cheaper, was up to date on the project, and the clients already knew him. It might have taken Jess a longer time to adapt, and he also performed his work better. I wanted to keep them both and not put a single mother in the cold, but I had to do right by the team. I told her I'd write her a beautiful recommendation, and maybe she could even reapply here. She snapped, called me the C word, and left. Am I the asshole for telling my overweight sister she should wear clothes that fit her? I, 30 female, love my sister, 24 female. We get along great, but growing up, not so much. My sister always struggled with other weight issues to the point where we were never allowed to use the word fat, even if it wasn't to describe a person. She worked through a lot of her confidence issues, but once our mom passed, she regressed mentally and began binge eating. She is now much heavier, but refuses to buy new clothes. And this has been over the past couple of years. I never said anything because of how sensitive the topic is for her. Well, she recently got a big girl job. We met for lunch and when she walked in, her stomach was hanging out. Am I the asshole for telling my overweight sister that she should wear clothes that fit her? We met up for lunch and her stomach was hanging out. She fixed it, but then it immediately came out again. I then asked her if she was working from home or in the office. She responded that she was working in the office and I told her her stomach was hanging out. She said that she knew and that she was fixing it all day, and I told her to go shopping with me this weekend. That way we can get some clothes that do fit her, and I'll pay since she hasn't gotten a check. She said they do fit her and that I shouldn't body shame her. I explained that she can wear whatever she wants, but it's not appropriate for an office job. And that's when she started crying and stormed out. So I just want to know, was I in the wrong?
Storytime, I was the toxic best friend. So a little background information, I was 16 and a sophomore in high school. And at the beginning of the year, I met this girl who we're going to call Riley. Riley and I hit it off straight away. Like a week after knowing each other, she knew everything about me and I knew everything about her. Well, then she tells me about this guy that she's talking to, who we're going to call Jay. She said that they would hook up sometimes and he would text her sometimes. But she said that I couldn't tell anybody because he said that it had to be a secret. So I tried telling her that he sounded like a fuckboy, but she decided she was going to do whatever she wanted. And I was like, okay. So fast forward to the end of the year, he adds me on Snapchat. Okay, don't get me wrong. He was really hot, but I had my own thing going on. So I really didn't pay that much attention to him. And I thought he maybe added me on Snapchat to be like, oh my God, I really like your best friend. And then I also was caught between a rock and a hard place. Do I tell my best friend that the guy that she likes just added me on Snapchat? Or do I lie to her? Well, I was going to tell her until I got a Snapchat from him, like for part 2. Part 2 about how I was the toxic best friend. So like I said, I didn't know whether I should tell her that he added me on Snapchat or if I should. And I was going to until I got a Snapchat from him saying, hey, you're really pretty. I think we should talk sometime. So I ended up telling her about it because I felt really bad. And she was like, this is why I can't trust girls. Like, you need to unadd him right now. Like, fucking block him. And I'm like, I didn't even do anything. Like, what the fuck? So whatever. I end up blocking him. It's fine. Until he texts me one day. And he's like, hey, it's Jay. I think you blocked me on Snapchat, LOL. And him and I had talked a little bit in school and I kind of started to like him. Well, fast forward, him and I ended up hooking up a few times. We were talking a lot. And he hadn't been texting Riley as much. Well, the one night while I was sleeping over at her house, my phone was going off a lot. And I didn't think to delete any of the messages, like for part 3. Part 3 about how I was the toxic best friend. So like I said, I was sleeping over her house the one night, my phone was blowing up, and she knows my password and everything, and I stupidly did not delete the text messages between Jay and I. And I kid you not, I wake up to a slap across the face. It felt like she slapped me with her fist, and it looked like it too because I had a black eye. So I woke up and she's like, what the fuck? Like, I hate you so much. Like, why would you do this? And I look down and she has my phone right in her hand on the text messages with Jay. And I ended up feeling really bad because she started crying, saying that, like, I knew that she liked him a lot. And I also knew the reason why he wasn't texting her as much. Well, then she ran downstairs and she told her mom. And the next thing I know, I had her mom, and her 3 other sisters screaming at me. And then I got blocked by Jay because she wasn't supposed to know and she leaked his nudes.
I, 19 female, had a Halloween party. I invited my boyfriend, 21 male, and a bunch of our friends over, including his girl best friend. I'll call her Agatha. My boyfriend and I had decided to dress up as Peter Pumpkin Eater. If you haven't seen the costume, the guy wears a shirt that says Peter, and the girl dresses up as a pumpkin because, well, you know. I was pretty excited just because I thought it was funny in a cute couple's costume. Agatha texted me the night before the party and asked what my costume was going to be. I explained the costume my boyfriend and I would be wearing, and she said that she was probably just going to come as a sexy cat. Fast forward to the night of the party. Everyone is having fun and it's a nice time. Well, it was, until Agatha walks in dressed as a pumpkin. I swear the room went silent. She went over and hugged my boyfriend. I asked if I could speak to her privately and we went to the bedroom. I asked why she had chosen to dress as a pumpkin since she knew the joint costume my boyfriend and I had planned. She said she didn't see the big deal and that it would be better as a group costume. I told her that I didn't think it was funny and that I would really like her to change into a different costume. I had a witch costume that she could borrow for the night. She turned red and started to yell that I don't get to control what she wears. I told her that she was disrespecting my relationship by insinuating that my boyfriend and her have sex. She kept screaming about how it was funny and I needed to lighten up, but I asked her to leave. She stormed out of the house and I returned to the party. The mood had shifted though and it felt like the night was ruined. My boyfriend agrees that she crossed the line, but a few of our friends are saying that I was being dramatic. So, am I wrong for kicking my boyfriend's girl best friend out of my Halloween party because of her costume?